Hello there, it's Jay here from Jay's Vintage Junk, and today I thought we'd have a look at well, it's an old Russian-built transistor clock radio. In fact, I thought we might have a look at two of them. Now, I've had these in my collection for quite a long time actually. These, now they're actually branded Signal. But in the UK, these were actually sold as it's a Vega Ruby, and these were imported to the UK. I think the 60s. I think they're probably mid 1960s. I mean, anyone can tell me an exact date. I'd quite like to know because I couldn't actually find an exact date on these. But they were imported into the UK by a company called Technical and Optical Limited of London. Interestingly enough, supposedly Technical and Optical Limited of London was a front company for the Russian KGB. It was basically a spy front. I'm not 100% sure how true that is, but that's the story that I've been told. And they used to import various consumer electronics, camera equipment, things like that, where they were made in the Soviet Union into the UK, and I think really in the 60s and 70s they were most prevalent. I think sort of like the little oh, what was they called now? There was some Vega television sets you could buy. I think there was like a little 7-inch television set, things like that. I think they came into the UK via that company. Anyway, in the UK, in the Soviet Union, they were sold under the Signal brand, and literally all they did was stick a Vega badge over the top of the Signal badge when they sold them in the UK, and unfortunately on both of the ones that I've got, the Vega badge is actually dropped off and it just leaves the original Signal badge underneath. But you can tell these are both actually, well, actually this one I'm not sure. This one I think actually was a Signal. We'll take this tape off after and I'll explain why it's taped up. But if we look at this one, we can see the Signal badge on the front there, but if we turn it over, it actually does say Vega Ruby on it. And that one used to have a Vega badge on it, but over the years, and unfortunately I don't know where it's gone, the badge has actually dropped off. There just seems to be some tape residue left there actually. I bet if I was to clean that tape residue off, there's a really nice clean, in fact I think there's a really nice clean Signal badge underneath there, because if you look, the Signal badge on this one, it is actually quite worn. It's started to wear the black's wearing off it. Now these would have originally, again, had a nice leather carry case for them. Unfortunately, again, both the ones that I've got, the case is missing. This one has seen slightly better days. That's my fault as well, because I actually do quite like to use my vintage radios, and I was using that one, I think it was last summer, out in the garden, and it fell off the wall and split open, and just as a quick temporary measure I just wrapped some tape around it. It was still working. The problem is these have both seemed to have stopped working. This one used to work fine. I was actually going to use it in a video a while back when I was looking, trying to get the pick up the IF frequency of another radio, and I couldn't actually get it to work. It might be something dead simple with it. It might have something more complex wrong with it. I'm not sure. So that's what I thought. We'd have a quick look at the two and see if we can at least get one of them back into full working order, if not both of them. Unfortunately, the clock mechanisms in them don't work. Well, that one doesn't. That one doesn't work at all. That one, at least it used to work a bit. It does still wind. I wonder if it's going to start working. We'll see the second hand fly around now. Yeah, this one does work a little bit, but it won't run for more than perhaps, say, 6-7 hours before it stops again. So unfortunately I can't use them for their intended purpose as radio alarm clocks, but they do make a nice radio. They actually, for a tiny little radio like that, they're incredibly sensitive, and they actually sound quite nice as well. Well, let's start with this one that had the great fall. We'll call this the Humpty Dumpty one. Right. And it was, like I said, it was working even after the fall, and then, if I remember correctly, it just stopped. It started fading out, and I put a new battery in it, and I think it worked for a bit, and then it just started fading out again. Now, it could be that we've got an electrolytic capacitor started to dry out. It's shorting out, and it's just pulling the battery dead after no time at all. I do know that at least one of these two, and I can't remember which one it is, I have had to replace at least one capacitor in one of them previously to get it working. First thing we'll do, it is pretty dead, I think. Oh, there's some life there. We hear. There's a little bit of life there, but it's not picking anything up. That's medium wave, goes for long wave. No, it's not picking anything up. Let's disconnect the battery. First thing we should do, really, and that's probably not helping, that battery connection there looks incredibly corroded. Yeah, that's not looking in good order at all. I think that's been repaired in the past by the look of it. Let's test the battery. I've got a couple of spare batteries here as well. I've not had a play with any old transistor radios for a while, so I thought it'd be a bit of fun while I'm waiting for that other MyPad 80 to turn up to have a fiddle with one of these. Let's have a look there. Can you see the meter there? Let's have a look. Let's just test the battery. Well, that's pretty shagged, isn't it? 4.5 volts on a 9 volt battery. Yeah, that's had it. Let's try test this one. There we go, 8.7 volts on that. So it's not a brand new one, but it's still perfectly healthy. Let's give this one a check, make sure this one's alright as well. Oh, well, that's not happy, is it? Yeah, that one can go in the bin. But we've got a good test battery here anyway. So let us see. That's not fitting on there very well. I think it's the fact that actually there's some bits of solder on the end. Just bear with me a sec. A couple of bits of solder on the end of the battery there. I think I must have tacked some wires onto it for a quick test at some point. Go on, off you come. There we go, that's better. That should fit on there now. Right, let's give this another try. I'm definitely going to have to change that battery snap though, because that's horribly corroded. Let's see whether a fresh battery makes any difference though. Oh, there we go. Starting horribly. I wonder if the speaker's been damaged. But it's not dead. It's not picking a huge amount up anyway. Let's try it over on long wave. Yeah, we're not even picking just about picking up radio 4. But I know when these are working well, they can pick up radio RTE from Ireland, no problem at all. So it's obviously not happy, but at least it's not completely dead, that one. Let's have a we'll switch the meter so we don't waste the battery in that. Let's have a look at the other one and see what the other one does. But the feeling that might have a bad capacitor in it, because I know that I put a new battery in that and it probably only played for 40 minutes, an hour after that, and stopped working again. So we looked at that battery's right down on its voltage, so it basically drained that battery. Right, let's have a look at this one. Well, that's come on. One medium wave there. There we go.
Do you think he stays on in the jobs?
The only thing with these is they're so sensitive when they're working.
Recently, Chelsea woefully out of form.
Actually tone deaf bit from pain was that you've had Indian players over 3 different days saying that they've been abused from the crowd. And particularly in that context, for him to be getting stuck into one of those players was really poor decision making.
I think, Jeff, looking
Now that's actually working quite well. Perhaps there was, I don't know why that weren't working. I wonder if it was just a bad battery.
We're talking about, the abuse from the stands, and then everything that happened on day 5. I think that's.
I mean,
why
that's
it's all
sounding
blown up
pretty
as it
good.
has been.
Yeah, as far as
I mean, knowing what stations I can pick up round here.
Arsenal, from the off to try and get a result.
That's actually pretty good. See what it's like on long wave.
I know, fashioned by the master.
Again, that's radio 4. See if we can get radio 1 or RT radio 1.
I think I may have the freedom.
No, I'm not getting it right now, but it could be down to just weather conditions. But that one's actually still working quite well, so I think we'll leave that one for now, because I'm reasonably happy with how that one's actually performing. I don't really listen to radio long wave much now anyways. It's more just some of the classic stations on medium wave. you know, if I'm out in the garden doing something like that, it's a nice radio to have out playing next to you. But we will have a look at this one. This is the one obviously that had the took the great fall, and it is physically broken, so we're going to have to do something about that. The battery snap on there is in a terrible state, so we're going to have to do something about that, and it's not really working to its full extent, is it? So we'll see what else we can do about that. And it does, the clock does work a little bit on this one. Unfortunately, I don't think I ever will get the clocks on them working. I did toy with the idea of taking one of them apart, probably the one that doesn't work at all, and sticking the mechanism in my ultrasonic cleaner, see if I could free it up that way. But I'll fully profess I don't know anything about really about watch mechanisms, so anything I do, I'm sure I'll be doing more harm than good. And unfortunately, professional watch repairers would want a hell of a lot. Ooh, wow, a hell of a lot to service something like that. It really wouldn't be. I think it would be beyond economic servicing. Yeah, this thing's definitely seemed to have taken a whack. I think we're going to have to be gluing some bits back together on this. So I don't believe that switch. No, it's not. That switch there is not meant to come out with the back of the case. That switch there is actually meant to be mounted as part of the case. There we go. Get that screw out there. I'll take that broken off piece of plastic. Right. Here we go. In fact, to stop it getting broken off, I'll disconnect the headphone jack at that side as well. Where's my little pliers? No, those are no good. You sure I've just seen them? Ah, there they are. They should do nicely. Right. At least the back's not in too bad a condition. The other thing with these Soviet-made sets, the plastic, it's the same as the type of plastic that the Soviet Spectrum clones tended to be made out of. It's not got the best quality feel to it. Let's just leave it at that. Right, but electronically, these, if you ever watch any of Shango's videos on some of the Russian stuff that he works on, it's the same thing. They were built differently, but these things were built, more to last than more of like our consumer grade stuff. The quality was absolutely brilliant, but just done in a slightly different way, a slightly stranger way. I mean, how many transistors have we got in this thing? 1, 2, 3. I think that's a capacitor. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think those are electrolytic. Ah, yeah, this is the one that I've worked on previously. Because if you look, that capacitor there doesn't look original. See, is it only 6 transistors? I'm really surprised. I'd have expected. Where's the output stage? I presume we've got a dual-ended output stage, but it'll be 2 of these. Yeah, it'll be these here, won't it? Yeah, this is our output stage round here. So we'll have a driver transistor and a pair of output transistors in push-pull, driving actually through driving through an output transformer. Very nicely made. What I don't want to do is mess the tuning dial and the tuning mechanism up if I can help it. I've got to figure out how we get the board out of the rest of the case. I said without making a mess of the tuning dial. There appears to be another screw. I must have had it out before, like I said, because I've changed that transistor, but that capacitor, but that was a very, very long time ago. Right. We were still using flathead screws as well. Oh, that's not good. I think we've had one. Oh yeah, the transformer's actually falling apart. That was one that's just dropped out. There is actually one of the laminations out of this transformer here. Hopefully, we can stick that back in. I mean, it shouldn't stop the transformer working. It'll just slightly affect its performance. But now let's see if we can get the board. There we go. We can get the board out. Oh yes, of course, that's it. This is nice. This is nice. We'll disconnect the volume control as well. Well, I'm going to take it off the case. Right. Put that mouse of harm's way. There we go. So all we've got is the speaker, and then we've got the clock mechanism there. Now what we can do, we can disconnect. What I don't really want to do, if I don't have to, is break this paint here, because if you look, they've actually been fixed down, and then the screw heads have been painted over with to lock the screws in place. And if I can help it, I'd rather not break that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to disconnect the wires from the back of the clock unit. And what we can do is we could just, for testing, if we want to test this out of the radio, we can just connect those two wires together, and that'll just simulate the clock being on the alarm. Although I believe that's what that switch does as well, actually, but I'm not sure if that switch is good on this one or not. It works on that one, I think. Alright, we'll disconnect the speaker. In fact, they've actually seemed to have put like a... We'll see if we can disconnect the speaker. It looks like they've glued over the speaker contacts. I don't know if we're going to get this. Yeah, they've used, like, I don't know what they've used. Never seen that before. But they put like a resin or something over the top. I'll just zoom you in. I've never seen this before. Let's move that round so you can get to the. Oh, that doesn't smell nice either. I think we'll have to get that off if I'm going to get that disconnected. But if you look here, they put like, it looks like an epoxy or something they've put over the top of the solder. In fact, we can pick it off. I wonder if I can scrape it. Ah, we can't. It does. Ah, you can actually scrape it off. Good. Or at least you can once you've hit it with a soldering iron. That's not coming off. That one has. Where I warmed it with a soldering iron, that flaked off. Let's try doing that on this side and holding my breath because it stinks. We'll hold the iron on it a sec. Like that. Now let's give it a go. See if we can get it off. I've never come across that before. Let's see if I can crack it off with the pliers. I don't want to do any damage to the actual speaker. Ah, there we go. That got it off. Yes, yeah, so it's like it almost looks like an araldite or something like that they've stuck on the. Excuse my arm. So that they've stuck on the solder points after they've soldered it. There we go, that's one off. There we go, we're free. Right, so we can get that to one side now. Get the screws out of the way and we can have a look at the damage. Now, let's have a look what's happened. We've lost two posts. We've lost a post. Well, hang on, sorry, let me zoom you out so you can see what I'm actually showing you. Right, we've lost some posts basically when it's dropped. But fortunately we've got them. So we've got that post there which has been broken off from there like that. And we've got this post here which has been broken off from there like that. So I suppose our first port of call now, we've got something broke. Ah, we've got another one as well which is still stuck on the bottom of here, so let's recover that. So we've still got one stuck on the bottom of the PCB here. So we've got three broken, there's a little piece of plastic that's broken off from somewhere, we'll keep that to one side. So we've got one there, and one there which are broken off. This one still seems in good order, although it's got a screw stuck in the top of it. See if we can get this one out. Oops. Bear with me, sorry, my glasses just dropped off. Let's get this one out. There we go. I'll clean some of that muck off. I think this has had a repair before by the look of it, because that's got an araldite or an epoxy or something around the top of it. I don't think that was me. Probably a very old repair. Right, so it's not... In fact, it could do with a damn good clean. What was that just dropped off? Oh, just a bit of stuff from there. Yeah, it could do with a bit of a clean. Ah, right, that's not going to be good. The way that the tuning, I've just remembered, works on this, the dial string, basically. The dial string's built into the front here. It's very much like that other Vega radio that I was playing about with, where you can take it apart and you don't really affect the dial string mechanism. That's all built into here. And there should be a drive on the end of there which meshes with the back of the tuning capacitor, and unfortunately that is broken. That has got snapped off. That bit there should be stuck to the middle of that bit there. That's how the tuning basically, I mean, the tuning will still work. You'll still be able to tune the radio, but the dial pointer on the front of the actual script on the front of the radio won't turn without that. So I think we're going to have to repair that as well. Yeah, that's going to. So I think our first port of call is going to be some gluing. I think what we'll have to do. Ooh, let's get that out a bit. There we go. What I think we're going to have to do. I want to give this a bit of a clean if I can. I don't think it's going to come perfect. It has a lot of yellow on it, and to be honest, the plastic is. The black plastic actually from this era isn't bad. It's as cheap and nasty and fragile as Soviet plastic from the era was. The cream coloured plastics aren't faring as well. I've noticed this on a few things. Some of the cream plastics from you know, 60s and 70s Soviet stuff, it's getting very, very brittle, and it is just literally starting to crumble away a bit. Like I said, I've noticed this on a few things that I've got and had through my hands. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to pause the video, and I'm going to go and give this just a bit of a clean, just in the kitchen sink, and see if I can get as much of the muck. Like I said, this was last used in the garden. I think it has probably picked up a bit of muck from its last use as, like I said, as a garden radio. So I'm just going to go and give this a bit of a quick clean up, and while I'm doing that, I will see if I can hunt out some two-part epoxy, some araldite or something like that, and we'll have a go at gluing these bits of plastic back together, and then we'll have a look, see what we can do with the actual radio chassis, see if we can improve that. So I'm pretty sure, I know I've had to replace that capacitor in the past. I think when I actually got this radio, it was, I mean, I think this was an eBay purchase, but this was an eBay purchase, you know, in the early 2000s. And I think to get this actual radio working, I had to change that. That's why I put that capacitor there. I will check the other. I mean, we've only got what? I'm not actually sure whether that's a capacitor or not, but we've got 1, 2, 3. 3 more electrolytics. The ceramic capacitors used in these, the resistors used in these, are usually very, very, very reliable. The transistors, to be fair, used in these, you don't usually find bad. I'm not saying that they can't fail, but they usually are fairly reliable. The capacitors, to be fair, have probably done quite well for their years, but it does seem to be more capacitor trouble that I find than anything else in some of this older stuff like this. Right, so anyway, I'll just quickly pause you. Like I say, I'll go and see if I can dig out something we can stick them parts together with, and I'll just give this a really quick clean over, because there's no point trying to stick plastic bits back together when the case is in such a manky state. So back in a sec. Okay, we're back, and as you can see, I've given it a clean. I just use some pink stuff. It's basically a plastic cleaner, a cream plastic cleaner, and give it a good wipe over. You'll never get the yellow off doing that, but it has got all the muck and the rubbish off it. I just made it a little bit nicer to handle for us to actually glue the pieces that have broken off back on. Right, I've got my epoxy here, and we're going to need something to apply it with. Just bear with me a sec. There they are. And what I like are lolly sticks. Generally speaking, what I do is in summer I collect up all of my ice cream lolly sticks and I stick them in a pot, and then I never ever need to bother buying glue spreaders or stirrers or anything. And what you can do is you can basically split them down and make a thinner one like that for finer things like we're going to need for here. Right, now let's have a look. We've got, that's the most obvious one because it's snapped right off at the base, and that's our biggest. In fact, let's get you zoomed in so you can see what we're doing here. There we go. So I think this is going to be our first one to repair. So what we will do, let's get you out a little bit. Let's get some epoxy mixed up, and we'll stick that one back in place first. Now it's a 50-50 mix, equal parts, but don't mix up too much. You only really want to mix up a little bit more than you actually expect to need. I always say a little bit more because you never want to be in that situation where you're just that tiny little bit short. Right, there we go. Now this is a rapid set epoxy. Some epoxies can take a few hours to go off. Generally speaking, the longer the cure time, the stronger the bond, the harder the epoxy is. This is like a 10-15 minute epoxy. But for what we're using it for, it's strong enough, it's perfectly fine. Make sure it's well mixed. Obviously, like I said, you have to mix the hardener and the actual resin together. Tiny bit of that. Put a little bit where the stump broke off. We'll stick that. Oops. There we are. Stick that back in place. Just make sure we've got it nicely set exactly where it should be. There we go, that one's the first one back in place. Now let's figure out where the next one that's broken off. We've got one from there, that's that one. We can tell because of the shape of the break, and that goes on there like that. A little bit of epoxy on there. And this stuff does actually stick, it sticks these older plastics very nicely. I'm not sure about on all plastics, but I do know it sticks these older plastics, and it does quite a good job of bonding these things back on. I'll stick this one. There we go. Stick that one back in position. There we are. So that's those two, because those two there are what hold the switch there, and that switch. Sorry, you can't see what I'm showing you. That switch there, and that's what switches it between a radio and a clock radio. But that's those all stuck back on there, so we can put that to one side for a second. We'll bring this in, and what we need to do is basically stick that back into the centre of there. We'll make sure we get it the right way around. So when we get the radio back together, when you tune it, it'll actually work the dial pointer on the front of the radio. It's not the end of the world if that doesn't work. The radio will still work, and this is, like I said, this is the set that I tend to use out in the garden. The other one, as you can see it, well, you can't because I'm not on it, but the other one is actually in somewhat better condition cosmetically. Let's get some of that on there. In fact, I think I'll stick it on the bottom of the. There we go. Let's get that on there. Get that the right way around. And we can stick that back in position like that. There we go, that's that stuck back in place. That's those stuck back in place. Now I could try and stick these bits of plastic which have broken off back on there like that, but honestly I really can't see the point in doing it because they're just going to break straight back off again. There isn't enough actual material there to make a decent bond. So what I'll do, in fact, what should I do? No, I'm going to have to leave that. Let's see if we can do this carefully. Well, I was just hoping if we can get it like that, we should be able to just stick this piece of the lamination. See, it's an outer lamination. We should just be able to see if we can stick this this lamination on that transformer back. Like I said, the transformer will work fine without it, but that epoxy's going a little bit on the off side now, but there might just be enough there. Let's see. So I'll stick that lamp back on that transformer. There we go. Stick that back in place. So it won't make a huge difference just you losing one little bit of the lamination. I think that's the intermediate transformer there. So I think, like I said, I've not looked at the circuit diagram for this, but I'm guessing your detector stage around here. This is very definitely the audio output stage, but I think you've got an isolation transformer there between the RF side and the the RF side and the audio frequency side. Then we've got a driver transistor, a push-pull output pair of transistors driving into that little output transformer there, which is then driving the speaker. I'm guessing that's how the circuit's been set up anyway. Anyway, I'm just going to pause the video. I'm going to give this a good 15-20 minutes for that epoxy to go off, and then we'll see if we can just hook the circuit back up to the speaker and see if that speaker sounds okay. I'm not sure what we're going to do if the speaker is bad actually, but we'll see what it sounds like, and then we'll have a look at some of them capacitors on the main board. See if then any of the other ones of those actually need changing, and then we'll have a look at putting this thing back together and actually see what we can see if we can get it into a reasonably working radio again. So back in a sec. Right, we're back, and it's been about 40 minutes actually, so this is well and truly cured now. So hopefully, yeah, our snapped off bits are nice and solid again. Yeah, great. So that's that back into a serviceable state. I suppose what we should do now really is have a look at this. Now, I think the first thing I should do is replace the battery snap connector here, because let me just zoom you in and you can actually see how bad this thing is. Oops. There we go. You can see on that side there, basically it's all corroded away along there. The connection for the positive side is a little better, but it's still badly corroded inside, and I mean these are ready to break off. You can just bend them with your finger like that. Those are going to break off soon. They've lost all the tension. So the best thing to do really is just to swap that out with a new one. Now this is where I should have just grabbed one and I'd be all ready to solder it in now, and like the idiot that I am, I've gone and left it in the other room, so I'll be back in 1 second. Right, so let's get the new battery snap in as a first thing. I'll just get you out a little bit so we can see what we're doing a bit better. And what have I done with my glasses? There they are. Right. So let's get rid of the old battery snap. Now that is soldered on here. So that's the positive disconnected. Let's see where the white goes. And the white's a bit longer. And the white goes all the way up to, let's just make sure that's the right wire. Those two white wires there are the speaker wires, and the battery negative goes all the way up here onto the switch, so it's switch negative. There we go, that's that disconnected. Pull those two wires out. The Soviet stuff, they did like the white wire. Everything, or at least most things, always seems to be wired in white wire. Right, we can pull the old battery snap out. There we go, let's get that out of the way. And I'm hoping that the wiring on the new one is going to be of a decent enough length to replicate what we've got there. There's the old one. There's the new one. Yeah, we're fine. We want to cut that down to about there. Get that snipped down. We'll strip that. We'll get that tinned up. There's my solder. There's my solder. There we go. That's soldered, that's that tinned up. And we will put this through here. We need to solder that back onto the switch, and we need to solder that and that white wire there back to where they came off the PCB there. Just add a little bit of fresh solder to the end. This is already pre-tinned because it's a new connector, but I'm just going to add a little bit of extra fresh solder there. And they literally just lay the wire on. There's no hole or anything to put the wire through, so it is just a laid on connection, unfortunately. So there's nothing else you can do. That's how it was done originally. So there we go, that's that reconnected. And then this white wire here and that new red wire need to be soldered back down onto the PCB here. That one there. This is going to be a little bit tricky to do because again there's no through hole for these. They're just laid onto the PCB and soldered. That's how they tend to do it quite a lot on these Russian things. In fact, I'm just that's it. There we go. So that's reconnected. So that's the new battery snap connector fitted there. Put enough wire on that to bring it through a bit. Yeah, that should be as good as it was. We'll give the radio in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to squirt a little bit of switch cleaner into the wave change switch there, and indeed a little bit into the volume control there. Don't need to worry about that switch too much, but definitely the wave change switch and the volume control. The volume control could do with a little bit of a shot of some kind of cleaner. Then I think we'll hook it up to a test speaker and see what it sounds like. Then we can hook it up to the original speaker and see what that sounds like. So I'm not 100% sure that original speaker is still any good. It sounded a bit odd when I was listening to it earlier. Right, we should be good there. Let's get some switch cleaner into that wave change switch. Just got some contact cleaner here, so we'll fire some of that into the switch and give that a work backwards and forwards. What you don't want to do is get any of that into the tuning capacitor there. It can cause all kinds of problems. You can actually change the capacity of the tuning capacitor. Now I believe eventually it will evaporate out and it will go back, but you can cause all kinds of problems. In fact, I'm sure it was Andy that it was Andy was saying he had an issue once where he sprayed it into a very scratchy and crackly tuning condenser, and the contact cleaner actually reacted with the plastic that makes up some of the plates in there, and it all turned to mush, and you had to find a new tuning condenser to fit. So it's one thing. If it's one of the old-fashioned metal style vane tuning condensers, you can clean them with contact cleaner, no problem. But if it's one of these little compact ones like this that uses like a plastic as one of the sides to the moving capacitor, don't fill them with contact cleaner, because you can have adverse effects from doing it. Right, so we've got that there. Like I said, let's see if we've got a test speaker we can connect up. If we can't, we'll just hook it up to the original one there. But I'm sure I've got a test speaker kicking about around here somewhere. Wonder where the hell that's gone. Come on, test speaker. And I've lost my glasses as well. Just bear with me a second, folks. I'll just see if I can sort a test speaker out. Okay, I found myself a test speaker, so let's get that connected up to the radio, and then we can give it a quick test. Like I said, it's in fact, before we do that, let's give the volume control here a quick don't think I want to risk trying to take that apart, but we will give it a quick shot. I'm going to work backwards and forwards because it was a bit on the manky side. Okay, right, let's get this test speaker connected up. So the reason I'm using this test speaker is I have a feeling that might have a the original speaker might have a fault in it just by the noises the radio was making. It was seeming very distorted. It could be down to a bad capacitor on the on this radio, on the circuit, but it could equally be down to a dodgy speaker. And with the fact that it has been dropped, it could definitely be a dodgy speaker. So just connecting it up to a test speaker, and I know this speaker does work. It just gives us a way of just testing for that. Right, okay, there we go. Let's connect the battery up. That's better. Let's switch on. Make sure. Oh, we've got nothing. That's definitely the radio on. Oh, hang on, I've got a wire come off here. Now, where have you come off from? Ah, now we've had this a wire come adrift. So our negative connection isn't getting back to the radio chassis. Those two go to the switch on the clock unit. Now I suppose while we're testing it we could just join those together and it doesn't matter what position that switch there's in. So let's just do that. We'll quickly solder those two together so we don't have to worry about which position that should do us. There we go. So then we don't have to worry what position we have that in. That's as though that the basically what we've done is trick it into thinking that the alarm's going off. Right. And then we've just got to figure out where that has broken away from. I suppose the easiest way of doing that would be to have a look in the back of the other radio actually. Let's just strip the end of that. Now the insulation that they used on this wire it's horrible stuff actually. It doesn't strip very well. In fact, those incredibly sharp scissors are actually better at stripping the insulation on this than some wire strippers are, because the wire strippers just tend to stretch the insulation rather than actually stripping it. I need to get my glasses on that, I can barely see it. That's better. Let's tin that up. Where's mine? There. So now I'm getting a bit of a clean. There we go. Bit of solder on there. Tin that up. And that's ready to reconnect when we figure out where it's come from. I actually think it's probably this bottom trace here. I think that's the negative, or rather where the negative connects to. In fact, we should. Yeah, yes it is. So we didn't have to open the other radio up. Let's solder that back in place, and then we can carry on testing. There we go. So these radios are very, very sensitive. Right, well that seems to be working reasonably well. I'll show you that in a minute. I've just noticed something about that which is really, really cool. Turn that off again. No crackle on the volume control. Let's just connect it back up to the original speaker and see what that sounds like. We'll take out the old speaker, well, the test speaker, and we'll try connecting it up to the original speaker that's still in the case. Okay, there we go. And we'll give it another test. Just get my iron. Last thing you want to do when you're doing something like this is have your iron slip and hit the actual case you're working on and leave a horrible soldering iron burn on it. Right, we'll switch back on. Pick something up.
To focus on treating emergencies, but of course
It does sound rattly, that.
Apart from in the over 80s, it's the latest sign of the lockdown.
Sites up and running to administer the jabs. Vaccine Development Minister Nadine Zahar means why some regions made a
Certainly sounds a bit rattly. I think we're going to have to bite the bullet and actually take this off the front and have a look underneath it. I wonder if it's rattling. I don't think the cone's rubbing or the cone's stuck or anything like that, but there's definitely a rattle there. So let's get it off the front of the case. Dear me, this. Yeah, whatever they seal this on with, in fact, I wonder if I can pull it. Yeah, great. I think we can sort this out. I just spotted something lovely. Like the speaker itself doesn't look bad, but look at that. Let's see if we've got something I can grab it out with him. I'm not even sure what it is, but a little foreign object like that behind the speaker. I think that was our rattle there. I'm not even sure where that's come from, but I think that's what our rattle was. Let's try it like that and see whether our rattle's gone.
Hello, good evening. This is the drill. Once you've figured out the
There we go.
looking for, 10 great songs, long been used. So I'm being too happy about that.
Yeah, that doesn't sound bad now. Right, let's put this back together and see what it sounds like. So I was going to consider changing all those electrolytic capacitors there. I mean, there's only 3 left, I know, but what are they? There's 100 UF. That one's... what's that one? That's a... well, at least we've got a date. I can't quite work out. I think it's a 430 that, but it's 1967. The capacitor was made, so I mean that's. Let's get you out so we can see what I'm actually doing. So that capacitor there is dated 1967, so that gives us a good indication of the date of the radio. So great, yeah. Like I said, I was considering changing out those 3 electrolytic capacitors at this point, but I don't think I'm going to. What I'm going to do, I'm going to reassemble the radio, get it all back together, and then I'm going to use it with one of these cheapo batteries. I mean, these are generally what I use in the sets that I actually use regularly. They're dirt cheap, they're 2 for like $1.50 or something like that, and they last fairly well. Now, if I'm using this and it goes flat after an hour, I still know there's a fault with this and we can readdress it and perhaps have a look at changing some of those capacitors. But if it can play for a good, 6, 7, 8 hours off one of these batteries, it's fine. Yeah, so let's get this thing back together now, and we'll see what it's like when we've actually got it all reassembled. Right, this should be fun. I have got a couple, I think I've shown them on a video a while back, of the little microsonic radios from Russia. I believe one was used in an episode of the TV series, the original, not the remake, the original cult TV series, The Prisoner. There's a particular episode where he finds a body washed up on the shoreline of the island, and he finds in the pocket of this body a little transistor radio, and he has this little, for a while until he gets caught with it, he has this little transistor radio, and it actually is one of the Russian microsonic radios. At the time, it was the smallest transistor, fully proper super heterodyne transistor radio you could get. I've got a few of them. None of them work. We may even have a very ambitious attempt to see if we can get one of them working in one of these videos. So I did buy them as spare parts radios. They're quite collectible, the microsonics. And they tend to use, in working order, they tend to usually sell for more than I'm prepared to pay. But when I got offered, I said 3 for a very reasonable price, I grabbed them. Right, let's get these soldered back on, and we can try and get this thing back together. In hindsight, I think I should have soldered these back on before I soldered the speaker on, but we can work with that. Ooh. That's that one in. I mean, I could just leave these bypassed. As I said, the clock radio doesn't actually work. Well, it works to some extent, but this one works more than the one on the other radio that I've got. That one's completely frozen. Like I said, this one will, if you wind it up, it'll run for perhaps like 6-7 hours, something like that, and then it'll stop. Right, so I think we're ready to put the. Do we have to put this switch back in first? I think we have to put this switch back in. So that must stand on there like that. Ah, unfortunately that's broken there. But I think we can still get it to work. So that stands on there and that goes through there. We need to put the on volume control back in. We took that out before. So that needs fixing back in position. These are quite fiddly radios to work on. These are very, very fiddly radios to work on. Yeah. I bet Russian repair techs had fun in the day. You see, you know, back then you bought something like this, and you know you weren't expecting it to be buying another one in 12 months' time when the warranty period ran out. You were expecting it to last years, and when it broke down, you was expecting someone to be able to repair it. Unlike most modern electronics. But they were, I suppose, because I mean it is very compact and it's got a lot in here for what it is. So by nature it has to be pretty damn. There we go. That's the volume control back in. Should be able to put the main board back down. Oh yeah, we need to screw that in place. Hang on. I've left the screw that I left in that broken off stud there. Let's get that out of the way. Right, that's ready for going back in position. Get this down. Now the tricky bit here is we need to get that gear wheel there to mesh with the gear in there for the front pointer to work. Right, so if we hold that like that and turn this until that drops down into its I knew this was going to be tricky. There we go. line that up, and then we need that to, there we go, that's snapped in. Make sure that that can sit there, because that's going to screw in place when we put the back in. Make sure these wires aren't going to get trapped. And push them in, that's right, that's sitting where it should do now. And we need to put the screws, I think there's actually only 2 screws that hold this in position. We've got one screw there, and that was one that was snapped off, that we glued the post back on. We'll screw that one down. Make sure that that's still in position so that, yep, the dial pointer is indeed working. Excellent. That's working nicely. And we've got one more screw up there that we need to put back into position. There. Screw that down. So that's the board now securely back into the radio rather than flopping around like it was originally. Now we need to put the long wave, medium wave legend back on there. And this is what I found interesting. I didn't notice this before. You know how we know we've got the standard long wave, medium wave legend on the back there, but if we turn it over, now it's not actually been filled in with colour, but we've got long wave and medium wave in the Cyrillic alphabet on the back of it. So for export they flipped it that way around and coloured them in. If it was for the home market they had it that way around and coloured that side in, so they only need to make one little emblem badge like that for both markets. That's nifty. That's just Russian. I like that idea. So there's our long wave, medium wave switch reinstated. That will get screwed back into position when we actually put the back on. Oh, in fact, that should be, I think that should be that way around. Yes, that should be that way round. Like that. Sorry, I had that the wrong way round. And there should be a screw in there. Now, is that screw missing? No, that screw's here. So we drop that screw in there. Now the bottom of this is slightly damaged, but I'm hoping it'll enough there to hold it into position. Now we need to put the earphone jack back into the side of the radio. There we go. And that quick twist with the pliers just to lock it in position. There we go. That should do. Yeah, that should do. Right, let's see if we can get the back on. If we're careful. There we go. There we are. That seems to have lined back up. Let's see if we can get these The interesting thing, all the screws inside it are crosshead. Sorry, are flathead. The 2 screws on the back are actually Phillips. There we go. Well, the case at least has gone back together quite nicely. Let's put the battery. We'll put the battery back in it. With its new battery connector. That fits in there okay. There we go, signal. Let's give it a try.
Yeah, there are some tax implications in between countries, so I'm not sure about that. That's something that the office I work for is like researching, because
that doesn't sound too bad, does it?
Working, which is like
It picks up my classic stations anyway. Let's try put it over onto medium wave. So I'm not that bothered about medium wave because there isn't very much on there I really want to listen to, but I'm not picking up there. Oh, there we go. It's not doing very well on medium wave, on long wave.
To provide that at scale as this vaccination service rolls out.
So what is the picture looking like elsewhere? And are there enough staff to administer the
Well, in
job?
fact, sorry, no.
Immense pressure the NHS is currently under. Dr. Fiona Lemons is a GP and chair of Liverpool Clinical Commissioning Group, which is responsible for the city's 85 GP practices. Hi.
Yeah. Well, what I'm going to do is next time I'm out in the garden and it's not miserable and wet, I might take this one out with me.
344, get your calls in now, we're talking Arsenal, Palace and that ball duel. We've got loads coming up, so I should come and
Yeah, you're into your Talk Sport. It picks Talk Sport up quite nicely. But anyway, there we go. Yeah, I'll do some more testing of that when I next go out and do some gardening. And I'll zoom you out a bit. I said that's the one that I've got, which is, I mean, it needs a clean, but is in a bit nicer, nicer physical condition. You know, it's not been bashed about or anything like that. As where this one's had a bit of a harder life, and I have. This is the one. That's the one that I'd rather, you know, sit on a shelf and I mean put a battery in it and let it play every now and again. But I wouldn't really take that one out and put it out in the garden. As where I said that one's had a bit of a harder life, and I don't mind having it as a garden radio. It's like I say, it's quite a nice, pleasant little radio to listen to. And it's now back into working order. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that little look at those little Russian clock radios. So thanks for watching and goodbye.